Hello and welcome to our Mandela Day panel. To us, Mandela Day means change starts with me and our personal commitments to change in our lives. We recently lost someone with this commitment in their life, and I'm going to quickly turn it over to Kevin Patel to talk a little bit more about this.
Hello, everyone. My name is Kevin Patel, and I just wanted to start off this panel with recognizing the life of Representative John Lewis. As many of you know, yesterday the news broke of the passing of civil rights leader and Congressman John Lewis. His life will forever be remembered for fighting to give the voiceless a voice, and most importantly, standing up for people's rights. Something I learned from Representative John Lewis to be an activist is that we have a moral obligation, a mission and mandate to speak up and speak out against injustices that happen within our communities and around the world, and to get into good trouble to make change happen. Let us remember to always cause good trouble. And as today marks Mandela Day, we must also remember in our own capacity for greatness to inspire people to believe in change and the power we have inside of us to make that change happen. With that being said, keep causing good trouble, because that is how we will truly make change happen. John Lewis will forever be in our hearts and an icon in the civil rights movement, a congressman, and for decades has been a force in the Democratic Party. At this time, I will ask for all the panelists to take a moment of silence to remember the Representative John Lewis. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Kevin. I'm also going to turn it over to Josh to share a video about Mandela Day.
Nelson Mandela said, "We can change the world and make it a better place. It is all in your hands to make a difference."
Mandela's legacy to me means prosperity through unity. It translates in Sepedi to say, "Le fala Mandela mo gonna le emetse phumelo ka tshwarisano setjhabeng."
Hi, I'm Brittany Petty.
Hi, I'm Nick Christie.
And what Mandela Day means to us is putting others before yourself, giving up your time,
Giving back to society and just continuing that legacy of putting others first.
Jina langu ni Simon Ray kutoka Tanzania. Nchini kwangu jina na mawazo ya Mandela bado yako hai. Hii ni kwa sababu rais wetu wa kwanza Julius Nyerere aliweka kipaumbele sana uhuru wa Mandela na uhuru wa Afrika Kusini na Afrika yote.
To me, Mandela Day is about remembering servant leadership. That every single day we should all play our part to ensure that we're creating a world that we want to live in.
It is a strong belief that we can overcome all challenges if we work with patience, persistence, integrity, and compassion.
Namusi ri kwamba chaka dza fhano Afrika Tshipembe dzi a kona u tshilisana dzoṱhe fhano naho mvelele dza hone dzi sa fani fhedziha dzi khou kona u nga tshila dzoṱhe kha shango lino.
In order to be a winner, you need to dream big and never give up in life.
Thank you. Thank you
so we have more of the video. We'll post it. We had a bunch of people from South Africa and around the world share, so we'll post that on the channel at the end of the show.
Beautiful. Happy Mandela Day, everyone. The panel we'll be conducting here is a follow-up to the listening circles that we had this Wednesday, July 15th, to communicate across generations on our goals, including the SDGs that we are working towards and how we would each like to be supported in our work. Now I'm going to turn it over to the panelists and ask that each person please introduce their name and where they're from and give us one word that represents what they heard in the listening circles. And for everyone listening, if you could go ahead and also write your one word takeaway in the comments as we get started here. So your name, where you're from, and one word that represents you, whoever would like to get started. Josh, want to go ahead?
So my name is Josh Friedman, and I'm in Santa Cruz, California. And one of the things that I heard in the listening circles where we were connecting across generations was that people felt that that is work that's deeply meaningful. That and so my one word would be, I guess, connection.
Thank you, Josh. Kevin, do you want to jump in?
Okay. My name is Kevin Mtai, and I'm from a place called Soy in Kenya. So I think in the circle, the one word I heard and we were discussing is about the leader must sacrifice themselves for the people in order for the people to benefit. Yeah, so it requires sacrifice for the leader for people to get benefit. Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin. Tandi, would you like to jump in?
So, good evening. My name is Tandi Mvakali. I'm based in Johannesburg, South Africa. The key word that I heard during the listening circles is open will and courage.
Thank you, Tandi. Kevin Patel, would you like to share?
Yeah, of course. Hey everyone, my name is Kevin J. Patel. I'm from Los Angeles, California. And this is not a word that I heard in the listening circles, but it's something that, was present, was unity. Everyone came together to fight for the same cause and talk about issues that are happening around the world.
Definitely agree with that. Ragda, would you like to jump in?
Yeah, I'm Ragda Al-Halawani from Egypt, and I think one word summarize our listening circle is eagerness of generations, the younger generation to hear the experiences of the older generation, if we might call it, and the older generation eager to listen to the younger and also share their experience and wisdom with them. So that's my takeaway.
Thank you. And also for people listening, feel free to share your one word that summarizes what you heard in the listening circles in the comments. Chelsea, would you like to share your name, where you're from, and one word that describes?
Sure. I'm Chelsea. I'm currently in Austin, Texas, but I come from an international household. Part of my family is from the UK and my husband is from Germany, but for now I'm in Austin. And the word that I think really represents what I heard and am excited about within listening circles was partnerships. So seeing different people come from different generations together and share what they were passionate about in terms of different SDGs gives me hope for more partnerships in SDG Goal 17.
Me too. Daryl, can I pass it on to you?
Thank you. Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me here. My name is Daryl Alvarez. I'm from Spain. The word that for me was very important to hear during the listening circles was hope, because no matter how difficult things can get, there is always hope to make this world a better place.
Thank you. And Bjorn, pass it to you.
Yeah, my name is Bjorn and I'm based in Sweden. I think the one word that sticks with me is collaboration. There was a really meaningful connection across the generations and an intent to continue that in the form of collaborating across generations as well. And I really think that's the way forward, and so did my group.
These are some great words. Bakil, pass it on to you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Bakil. I'm from Saudi Arabia. And the word that stood out to me was faith or believe. Is believing that the current work we're doing today will affect a better tomorrow for everyone.
Thank you. Thank you all so much. And I'm Lana Waganet. I'm going to be the moderator for today. I'm from Brazil, but I'm living in Baltimore, Maryland right now. And so many wonderful words have already been said. Mine would be inspired, definitely. So
we could share a couple from that came up from the chat.
Definitely. I was thinking that as I heard hope from Daryl, and someone else also said hope at the same time, which is really great. Yeah, some great responses in the chat as well. Thank you,
And
Jeff.
maybe for those who don't know what we're talking about, we a couple of days ago had a experiment to see what happens if we went into small groups like this, a little smaller than this, but with people from multiple generations to really work on listening to each other.
Yes, so we'll be talking about that some more and what we heard from these different generations in our conversations in the breakout rooms on Wednesday. So thank you all to everyone who joined us on Wednesday and is joining us now for the live stream panel as well. My next question to the panelists is, of all that you heard, what was one phrase that most surprised, shocked, or stood out to you as like, wow, I didn't realize this was an experience or perspective?
I can share. So for me, it was surprising that sometimes we work towards a certain goal or a certain SGD goal, but then we don't focus on our own habits and patterns. And this is where some conflict happens. Sometimes we're too focused on having that goal, like spreading awareness and doing some community work, that internally in our households with ourselves we forget to focus on our own habits and patterns, and that made like give me some light to shed on myself. Where do I stand in terms of my own practices, on my daily practices?
I really appreciate that, because I think one of the things that I take from Mandela's message about change starts with me means that there's inner work for me to do. And I told the rest of the panelists before we started, I'd had a very big morning with lots of emotions and really grappling with how do I show up as somebody who really is the leader I mean to be. And that's an interesting challenge.
Josh, would you like to share as well? What most stood out to you or in the listening circles?
Well, I think for me, it was just that people, when we came back from the circles and people were sharing, it wasn't surprising to me, but I really appreciated how many people said, I want to continue this. I want to know what I can do. And I just wanted to say we had a couple of other nice words here from people, what they heard. Moisi, thank you.
Thank you. Tandy, would you like to jump in as well with what most surprised, shocked, stood out to you?
Yeah. So for me, I was quite taken aback by the diversity of initiatives that people have that center around the SDGs. And I was also taken aback by the courage and commitment people have to pursue these goals despite difficulties that they may experience. So that willingness to push through. So that for me was quite big. Thank you.
Thank you. Kevin Patel, would you like to jump into this question as well?
Definitely. I guess one of the things I noticed and what didn't, shock me, but, still surprised me is that there was a sense of synergy, we were very intersectional. So a lot of different ages, and being a young person in the room and presence of different people and different perspectives was very interesting to me. And just to show that we have a common goal to make change, right? In every generation, people can make change, and that's the thing that we're looking for. And so just what really surprised me is that we can come together and really, talk about these issues and say, we must solve them. This is the time to solve them. And so, yeah.
Definitely. I don't have that many intergenerational conversations, and I think it was really amazing to sit down with all these different generations. Ragda, can I pass it on to you?
Yeah, it keeps striking me, although I'm confronted by it many times, is actually the amount of people who are working towards the different SDGs. And I think we had this conversation that what didn't really work, or the transformation from the millennial goals to the sustainable goals, is that the UN found out that the UN agencies and heads of states cannot alone achieve the SDGs. It has to be every single individual, organization, group working towards that. And step by step across the years, I'm always surprised by the amount of people who are actually trying to achieve the SDGs. So I think that stood out for me.
And if I could just add to that, just in case anybody's not familiar, sorry to cover people's faces like this, but these are the 17 Sustainable Development Goals that the United Nations adopted in 2015 with the message that this is what our priorities need to be to have a sustainable future in 2030. And just to echo Ragda, number 17 for me, I thought that was really demonstrated. And here as well, you know, like we're 10 people all working in some ways on these goals in very different spaces, and yet we see there's a huge amount of intersectionality, and that to me gives me a lot of energy to have that sense that all of these different things actually come together inside us and together.
I definitely think this touches on very strongly SDG 17 and the partnerships coming together, not only of organizations, but of people, and that collaboration. It's very exciting. Kevin, I'd love to hear, Kevin M. I'd love to hear your perspective.
Okay. For me, what really maybe give me a challenge is that most of the people, especially maybe in rural area, they were working so hard maybe to able to fulfill this, I think, SDGs, but I think some government official or government doesn't giving them, I think, a very full support or a full input. So that's why that was my big challenge in the cycle. Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin. Chelsea, I'll pass it on to you.
Sure. So I'd like to share something that was a bit of a challenge, but I think there is a lesson in it. And that is, we had a little bit of technical difficulties in our chat, and people calling in from all over the world. And it reminded me of the resilience that we have. And the willingness as a community to work together and solve problems, even in the most simple way. So the example that I'd like to give is within our chat, we had somebody where we couldn't hear her very well. And, you know, I let the space be there for a second, and somebody stepped up and said, well, that's okay. Just have her put it in the chat and I'll read it, right? And so I saw very quickly how even in real time, we could come together amongst challenges and difficulties that we're going to be facing now and with COVID, and really rally together to move forward in the world. So that was something that I took away, is that, you know, these are really complex issues, and sometimes simply just being kind and working together and being resilient is what we need.
Thank you so much, Chelsea. Definitely. I think a lot of us can agree with that. Josh is napping. So you can see the agreement here. Yeah, for anyone else, feel free to jump in on this question too.
Yes, I
think
could
one
just
of-
like to add something. Can I go?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay. For me, one of the things that was super, like, really surprising, not actually surprising, but I never thought about it, was that the amount of mixed feelings that people working in this field have, no matter if they were 80 years old, if they were 15 years old. A lot of times you feel super encouraged, super motivated, super inspired, but at the same time you have a lot of doubts. You think that you won't be able to do it, and no matter what, like, people keep on going. Even if you see people super confident when they are speaking about these things, when they are working towards these things, at the end they're always scared. They are human beings, and everyone can overcome their own things for like a greater good.
Thank you so much. Bjorn, what most shocked, surprised, or stood out to you?
So I think kind of on a sort of practical level, amidst all of these kind of grander visions, was there was a young man who is a teacher in New York and Brooklyn in the Bronx, who's teaching music, and he talked about the enormous segregation in schools that still exists in New York, which from this side of the Atlantic looks like the civilized part of America, but also about the underinvestment in youth. And I think really kind of on Mandela Day, it's worth acknowledging the enormous racial segregation and socioeconomic segregation that exists in schools, as well as the enormous underinvestment in the generations that are younger than us, the generations that are yet to be labeled, that aren't yet Zoomers even, that are still in schools. And so I found it disheartening to some extent to hear about his situation, but also to learn about the work that is being done to try to alleviate this issue.
I just wanted to call out a couple of comments in the chat, and just coming back to this piece about emotions are something that connects us, and emotions are a universal human language. And I think that, that piece, and then just a couple of other people saying hello, and we're glad to see you here with us.
Yeah, for everyone in the comments, feel free to also share if you joined us on Wednesday for the listening circles and had anything really stand out to you in your breakout rooms. We'd love to hear that as well. And yeah.
May I add something?
Go ahead.
There's a narrative about being a change maker, which goes like this. I struggled, things were hard, I figured it out, I solved the problem, and now I'm out there in the world making change. And I think that narrative is very problematic. And I don't know how it is for those of you in millennials and Gen Z here. I'm curious, how you grapple with that yourself, because for me, that's not been the reality. For me, it's been, like lots of up and downs. And sometimes I feel like that story that it's like, oh, I'm going to struggle and then it's going to be fine. This sort of fairy tale story of change maker. And I don't think that was Nelson Mandela's story. Like, he struggled and then, accomplished, and then struggled more, and then accomplished and struggled more. But
I think a lot of us are nodding.
Yeah, it feels disheartening to me to say like, oh, everything's going to be great. We're going to figure this out.
I agree with that, Josh.
At the same time, we're going to figure a lot of stuff out. Like we're always progressing as humanity, and I think part of human progression is to maintain the struggle, and being relatively young, but also having been in the fight for quite some time. We've had accomplishments, we've had defeats, and it's a roller coaster for sure. And there's a lot of the times it feels like the entire world is against us. But standing up for what's right and what you believe in ultimately it gets you at least inches closer, and then you get slapped right back. But it's more often than not there's 2 steps forwards and 1 step back, rather than 1 step forwards and 2 steps back. So there's always hope.
Yeah, I would like to share based on that as well. couple of years ago in Masterpiece, my organization, we started a campaign called Be a Nelson, and it was inspired by Nelson Mandela, but actually not the Mandela, but more the Nelson, this young man that stood up for something, with all the fear and uncertainty, but just the feeling of injustice that drove him. And the campaign is to identify the Nelsons among us, not the Mandela, not the legacy, which is of course great if someone grew to it, but that was the focus. And really it spoke to me because maybe we would never be the Mandela, but every single person of us can be the Nelson. And it was magnificent, the amount of people who poured in or identified someone else and nominated them, saying this is the Nelson in my life or in my community or in my city. And it's really, really beautiful. And of course, in Africa, it really resonated very much. And people said, okay, why not? I'm the Gandhi. And but it's really inspired by the same thought, Josh, what you just tossed into the table.
I could also thank Josh from bringing this to the table, because I think this is a conversation we should have more often, because a lot of times we see people like Gandhi or or Nelson that mentioned, and you see those people are like superhuman beings, like something like supernatural that the most probably people cannot do. But as Josh mentioned, like this is all the time a process. Sometimes it will be hard, sometimes it will be easy, sometimes you will feel defeated, sometimes you will feel like you have superpowers, but everyone feels those things. It's just trying to overcome, relying on people, because together we are stronger and together we can change the world.
Yeah, thank you, Josh, for bringing that into the conversation. I think that's so important, especially when we're focusing on sustainable activism. The struggle probably won't end even in the lifetimes of the youngest people that we have here in our panel. There's just so many issues, and so many of these efforts are ongoing, and we need to be able to continue that work again and again.
Which hopefully our next project will help with.
So moving on to our postcard project, I'd love to hear from our panelists how you think this postcard project can help us really listen and connect across generations.
Maybe we should introduce the postcard project first.
Bjorn, would you like to talk a little bit more about that?
So to those who weren't with us earlier in the week, the postcard project is called Postcards for Change, and it's really about collecting ideas and intentions, where we have set up a website on 6sec/ cards or the khalifailerinstitute.org, and you can click in the banner where it says Postcards for Change, and you can get to a page where we will be displaying all of the postcards that we are receiving, but also where you can fill out a form and send us a picture, and you can also send some text about how you are intending to be a change maker in your own community and in your own society. You can also send postcards by mail to Masterpiece in the Netherlands, or you can post on social media and use the hashtag postcards #4 and then change. And the idea here is really to get people thinking about what role they can play, in essence, largely how they can be a Nelson, how we all can change our immediate surroundings, and how that change has ripple effects that changes things at the bigger, higher levels as well. So that's about it for what the postcards are about.
Yeah, so we have in the comments now. Oh, go ahead.
I can show a sample of the postcard, and I'll be reading a little bit about sharing gratitude and practicing gratitude. And it's proven that it will increase your physical well-being, psychological well-being, and increases your empathy. So this is my postcard. It's a little bit not ready yet. I'm working on it, and I'll be sending it through the website and posting it on social media to share with everyone.
Thank you, Bakil. It's a great example.
I want to know. I didn't want to know what it's about. You don't have to tell us all the details, but what's the message?
So I like to use colors. So I worked the other way around. So I did the painting, I did the colors, I did the drawing, and then I decided who does it fit to. And it ended up my university teacher because I was not happy at university, and she made the difference for my university experience for me to continue learning and staying in university. So I want to send that to her.
Happy, Josh?
One of the things we designed in the postcards, and you'll read about it on the website, is that we want people to think about a real person, or maybe it's a fictional person, but it's somebody concrete. And like, how does that feel for you? What does that inspire for you? How does that help your vision? How does that help you as a change maker? And I think it goes back to what people were sharing earlier about SDG 17 and that change starts with me, and this more human to human connectedness to support us for this essential work.
I'd love to hear more from our younger panelists, Kevin Patel and Kevin and Ty, about why they think this is important. Kevin Patel, do you want to get us started?
Yeah, definitely. I guess, I was in the process of making my postcard. It's not done, but I will share what I wrote on it because I think everyone can learn from it. And this is like, a little sentiment. When we change, the world changes, right? The key to all change is our inner transformation, a change of our hearts and minds. This is human revolution. We have the power to change. When we realize the truth, we can bring forth that power anywhere, anytime, and any situation. And so just reminding us that we truly have the power to make change, and it's basically, human revolution to make change happen.
Thank you, Kevin. Go ahead.
Okay. I think for me, yeah, about the postcard. So recently, with my friend, we have been working so hard to save our national park in Nairobi. So I'm preparing a postcard just to send it to the cabinet minister of the tourists, who recently, I think yesterday, he called us on media when he was being interviewed. We are a noisemaker, so I want to send him one of my postcard to tell him, yes, we are a noisemaker to make the world a better place to live. Thank you.
That's great, Kevin. Has anyone else been working on a postcard or have an idea for the postcard that they're going to write to someone?
I just would love to highlight the first postcard that was shared, and a little bit on Joshua's point that there's beauty in the struggle. That, when she was struggling in university, that's when she found mentorship, right? So I think reminding ourselves to, in the spirit of Mandela, appreciate the journey as well, and the ups and the downs and all of it, because that's actually the change, not just the parts where you're victorious.
Thank you, Chelsea.
So for me, I'm wondering can you send a postcard posthumously? Given that we are celebrating, the Mandela Day today. And perhaps for me, the person that really comes to mind is also Winnie Mandela, and the sacrifices, the unison with which she worked with her husband and her kids, and the sacrifice that they made as a family, but also the extent to which she was connected to her community, and she served her community throughout. So I would probably craft a message to her.
Thank you, Sandy.
I think definitely posthumously is a viable way to go, and would be very beautiful. So I've been working mostly on the website side of things, and have been receiving some of these postcards, and that's really an amazing day. So I look forward to seeing yours as well.
I'm also curious, Ragda, your organization has people creating art all over the world, and I just see a really beautiful connection between, looking at Bakil's postcard. My postcard's not going to be quite that beautiful, but I'm just I'm going to do it digitally. But it just seems like a way to say, like, let's look at expressing in a creative way something about what really inspires us.
Yeah, I mean, like, our vision is that the world has 7 billion talents and not 7 billion issues. And we are always surprised in Masterpiece, because we work on using art as a mobilizer for communities and individuals to express, especially in difficult topics, and to connect to others. And when it's in a conflict area, when it's very hard to have a dialogue at the start, but with art it's a soft power to bring people through a music concert or painting walls. And the amount of talent and creativity in every single person of us is always inspiring to see. And when we trigger people to express, at the beginning there's this resistance of actually expressing themselves, and usually people say, I'm not an artist. And then going throughout the process, step by step, they create their own piece of art, which speaks to them and actually express their talent. And it's really true. Every single person has a talent, and especially in the most difficult times or areas, it's more relevant, that statement.
We talked about having, instead of a listening circle, creating a postcard circle also. For those of us like me who say, oh, I'm not very artistic, I want somebody to help me put my postcard into a postcard.
Yeah, I think art is a really beautiful way to connect with people, and just a great medium as well, especially for people who aren't doing it because of artistic ability. Songs are used for revolution and change, and I think art is as well. So it's really great, Roger.
I think it's worth to highlight for those in the audience who feel like Josh that you don't have to make the picture of the postcard yourself. You can buy a postcard at the shop or something like that as well. Although we certainly do appreciate postcards like Bakil's, which is very, very beautiful and adds an extra personal flair, which is really nice. And so, send a card in whichever form you would like. And don't feel pressured into doing things you're not comfortable with, but at the same time feel a little bit pressured to doing things you're not comfortable with, because being a change maker and change is never in itself comfortable. So we should all challenge ourselves a little bit here, but at the same time there's a low bar to entry here.
And Kevin Matai, you were going to make a video as a postcard.
Yeah. I think I made it.
Cool.
Yeah. I'll be sending it. I think. Don't worry, I'll send you.
And we're going to collect them if they have the hashtag.
Yeah, so you can see there's a lot of creative ways to go about this just from our small group of panelists. There's a variety of different angles people have come from.
And maybe we should also explain about September 21st and October 24th and what we're going to do with these postcards. Somebody other than me want to do that?
Josh, I think you're the great, or Bjorn.
But Josh, you can do it, seeing as I've been thinking about these postcards forever.
It's September 21st. Ragda should talk about September 21st. I'll just talk about October 24th. October 24th is the 75th anniversary of the United Nations. And I having worked with the United Nations, I know that there's a lot of politics, there's a lot of complexity, there's a lot of whatever, but the vision is so inspiring to me. And the idea that we could actually be United Nations. And so 75 years in, it's time for the next chapter. And what if all of us, what if 7 billion of us actually were participating in this? And that for me is what the 75th anniversary is about. And these postcards are going to become a collage that's part of the 75th anniversary celebration. But first, we have the 21st.
Definitely, and we would like to call it inside our organization like the United Nations best kept secret. The 21st of September is actually United Nations International Day of Peace, and of course there are so many days out there, but it is the one day that all countries around the world cease fire. So we hope that it's really 365 days around the year, but at least this is 1 year. And the notion was started by actually Honduras and the UK to distribute vaccines to children on one day that there is no war, and there was millions of children that were vaccinated in Afghanistan and different parts of the world. We adopted this day, and it makes so much more difference. I think this year it's really, really special, not only because it's actually what the UN called the biggest human crisis ever that passed the humanity. And it's not only because of COVID on a health pressure, but also on economy and social cohesion. So this year is really significant. And together with 6 Seconds, we're very happy, and other organizations around the world, to have the hashtag 7 billion strong, which is a campaign and a movement that was launched towards the 75 years of the United Nations, but we will celebrate Peace Day as United. So again, whatever your expression, whether it's a video or a postcard or a postcard video or anything, with that hashtag, we will aggregate it, we will curate it and create a gift out of it, and we will hand it over to the United Nations on the 24th of October as the world voice of deciding the future. What Josh, you mentioned, that the UN is actually asking people around the world to decide the next 75 years how it will look like, and I think we all have to have a say in this. And being from the Global South myself, I feel the responsibility, but also the opportunity for inviting everyone to put in their statement, their idea, their narrative into what's actually going to be the future of all of us, because it belongs to all of us. So we have to make the decision on how it will look like, also collectively. So that is, we're joining together. There will be so many more details about the hashtag 7 billion strong, and every single person of us is actually strong.
I think
I
another
think
really
there's a lot on the note of what the UN actually means and or in the individual roles as well. I think it's worth noting that in the charter that founded the United Nations, the opening line is not "we the nations," it's "we the peoples," and there is a focus on us, the peoples of the world, as the owners of the United Nations. And I think that kind of spirit is worth carrying into this project as we try to gather as many voices as possible in how we want to shape the future of the UN.
I think that's really beautiful. And I think another really beautiful aspect of the International Day of Peace on September 21st is that it does have a very strong focus on youth and on younger generations in peace building among the countries. And I think that's really amazing too, and really ties into another hashtag that we're championing, which is Generation Unlimited, which is UNICEF's campaign to empower young leaders. I think that's really important as well.
I just add a +1 on that. In this message that it's time for us to listen to more generations. So I just want to appreciate all these different generations here, and just a shout out to Becca, who is representing boomers as well on our team. So thank you, Becca.
Thank you so much, Becca. Perhaps we can move on to our last question for the panelists today, which is around something that you've learned between today and Wednesday as a change maker and as a peace builder, and how you'll use postcards for change to help you put that learning into action. So maybe we should start with our younger generation. Kevin, if you want to go ahead, Kevin Patel.
Definitely. Thank you so much, Lana. One thing that I would say, and something that I, you know, have learned is that we must, I think one of the things I said in the beginning is that we must come together. We must unite together. Unity and solidarity is going to make the change happen in around the world. And so one thing that I look forward to, and something that I will be implementing in my activism in my daily life as a youth advocate and as a change maker, is that we must unite all generations and really be intersectional about all the issues that are happening to solve the SDGs and all the issues that are happening.
Thank you, Kevin. Josh, I know you're very eager to jump in. Do you want to add your perspective as well?
I just appreciate the people who are coming forward to say, yeah, let's try something new. And I feel like this pandemic time, one of the gifts of this adversity, and not to minimize how brutally difficult this adversity is, and one of the gifts of that is, I think a lot of us are saying, okay, let's do something different. Let's do something new. So, Lana, I'll send you a postcard, which is about how I'm inspired by you saying, yes, let's do something new and step up and use my voice even when that's hard.
Thank you, Josh. I need to work on my postcard as well. Also very intimidated by drawing, but I don't think that should stop anyone if it's not stopping me and Josh. Bjorn, I'll throw it to you.
I think one of the things that I've certainly reflected on, I hope I learned it before Wednesday, was that there is so much to learn from across the generations. I find myself in this weird position of, like, a couple of weeks ago, I was in the youngest generation, but now you Zoomers are apparently a thing. and find myself somewhat baffled by that, which is amazing. And part of my MO has always been figuring out how can we lend a stage to the people who don't have it. And I find myself with this whole new opportunity in working with you guys, which is amazing. But part of it is really about learning from across the generations. Like, what can I learn from you guys? What can I learn from the Gen Xers and from the Boomers and from Josh and the ancient people, and of course I'm gonna offend them on the way, but it's done with love, Josh. We all have so much to contribute, but we also have so much to learn from each other when it comes to what issues we have been working on, the strategies that we have deployed, what's been tested, what hasn't been tested yet, what are the creative solutions we can find to problems that have been with us for generations, what are the problems that generations who are coming up now are having that generations prior to us didn't have but might have ideas on how to solve. There's so much that happens when we meet in situations like this, where we are gathered across continents and across generations and across nations and across time zones, as I'm sure some of you are feeling. There's so much to learn, and I think that's really what I've been carrying, especially high on my agenda since Wednesday, but always hopefully have known. So yeah.
Thank you, Bjorn. Bakil, would you like to add in?
So I felt sometimes when we're in the arena, we feel lonely and we think that we're the only one who's trying to fight a battle or make a case or prove a point and make the change. But after our meetup a couple of days ago, I felt that I'm not alone and that everybody's going or doing something to make this world a better place. So if anyone out there is feeling a little bit lonely or down, we're all in the same arena, and I'm learning to transform frustration into courage, and I feel this is what's going to keep us moving forward as a generation.
Definitely. I think there's some great insights being said between like connecting among generations, which seems like really stuck with us from Wednesday as well, and from this conversation. Tandy, what would you like to add in around this?
Yeah. So for me, if I could just share a word from one of the languages in isiZulu. When you greet somebody, you say sawubona, meaning that I see you. So for me, the key things really is to listen to different generations to existence. So we mirror their existence, because sometimes, especially the younger generations, sometimes they feel like they're not heard, or sometimes we call them the lost generations. So I think there's a compelling need to begin to listen to everybody and mirror them into existence so that they are seen. So that's very key for me.
That's
Definitely. Go ahead, Josh.
I just said that's beautiful.
I think we all agree. Yeah, that's very important. As we're bringing in younger and younger generations, right? Like I'm part of Generation Z, and I'm constantly bringing in people who are younger than me into this work and into championing the change that we want to make. So I think it's a constant work of bringing in those whose voices aren't being heard. Raja, can I pass this on to you?
I think what we laughed about the other day, but it's very profound, is that I always felt I'm the younger generation around, which is I'm Generation M. So I always felt that way, and the young kid in the block, and trying to drive change, and in a way listening to the stories of also Gen Z and how much socially driven they are. So I read that a lot in the research, but I think through these initiative as well, I get to talk to many of them and through our teams around the world, and they are really passionate about that. But what I loved about the discussion is that there's a lot of wisdom, and not only wisdom in terms of from the old, but also from the experiences and the appreciation of the generations who made it possible for us to actually speak up and to have the platform also where I come from the Middle East, or like with other regions as well, that's this intergenerational dialogue is pretty much what we can do to achieve the different goals that we have. So this realization is stuck with me a bit for longer, but then it's interesting to see the dynamics that goes back and forth between different generations.
Chelsea, I'd love to hear from you. We've heard some beautiful perspectives so far.
Sure. I think I'll kind of add a little bit to what was just said, and that is, I think sometimes, so in my work, particularly with next gen philanthropists and impact investors, I see next gen siloed, right, in different communities or in different conversations. And so what was so special about this is you got to really hear about what mistakes have happened before you, what work has happened before you, what should you be aware of. And the other thing I will just add is that beautiful aspect of support from older generations saying, you are not in this alone. We are behind you. We will work alongside you. And so I think just being able to hold space for those action-oriented conversations is something I'm really grateful for with this project.
I think we also want to take a second to highlight the word that Tandy shared, right? I think Josh put it up on the screen a few minutes ago, but there we go. Yeah, it means that's the spelling for the word. So thank you so much, Tandy, for sharing with us. I know someone was asking in the comments. Really stuck out to them. Kevin Untai, can I pass this on to you? What you've learned from Wednesday and today, and how you're going to bring this forward of Postcards for Change.
Okay, sorry, can you come again? Sorry.
So we're asking what you learned between Wednesday's listening circles and today, the panel conversations that we've had, and how you're going to continue putting that learning into action through Postcards for Change and as a change maker, the amazing work that you do.
Okay. I think for me, my postcard is just. I think I've mentioned it earlier. We have been running a campaign, Saving Nairobi National Park. So for me, that has fueled me and has given me a hope during our cycle meeting, which we were running up to today. I've run a lot, so I'll not give up. I will just follow what Mandela said. Just do good things to the society, make the society be a better place where people can live. So don't give up and fight for the future. Yeah, that's my word.
It's a great takeaway. I don't think anyone can argue with that. I believe, Daryl, I think you're the last person we hear from before we wrap up.
Yes, well, I have a lot of things that I learned with all this, but I would like to focus on 3 key takeaways. The first one is that it is as important to have your voice be heard than it is to listen. Without any type of prejudices. A lot of times we focus on like raising our voices, but we forget that it's so important to listen what other people have to say. And also with Postcards for Change, I learned that everyone has a role to play in changing the world. And it's a big shout out for all those invisible beauty makers that are changing the world and we don't know. They're changing their communities, they're changing their neighborhoods, they're changing other people's lives, but they're not in the news, but they're still helping in changing the world. And I think that this is also has taught me that the time to act is now. We need to unite towards like this common goal that we have of like building a better future for all of us, and everyone has so much energy and everyone has so much enthusiasm, and like together we can do it.
I don't think we're going to get a better ending than that. That was wonderful. Would anyone else like to say any last, Josh, feel free to add in before we wrap up.
Unmute myself. I just see that we're in a time and place of a lot of polarization and a lot of othering and a lot of disconnection. And I think it's, Bjorn, you've talked about that often in times of crisis, people come together, but also often in times of crisis, people become more polarized. And I think that the chapter of history that we're living right now and that we're writing right now, we're at a turning point and we're at a precipice point. And I want us to be using our voices and stepping forward to say, sal bono, and to be connecting with ourselves and each other. Because if we do not do it now, we will be regretting it later. It's time for us to take the courage to connect.
With that in mind, thank you all so much for joining us today. Reminder to take part in Postcards for Change at sigsec.org/cards, which has also been posted in the comments, that we can continue to listen and connect across generations. As we wrap up, I want to leave you all with one last question, which is, if somebody were to write a postcard to you, what would you want them to say? Thank you all so much. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.